Hey, Leading Hope community. A little bit of a different start to the podcast over this month. I'm so excited. This month, I have a book coming out, and it's very different from the content of this podcast. This is not a leadership book. It's about faith, how people lose it, what happens when faith has been left behind, and how to rebuild it. The book is titled Reconstructing the Rubble. It doesn't release nationwide until March, but if you want to be a part of the launch team, you can go to behope.church/book to get an early copy of this book and help us get the word out to others. Thanks so much for being a part of this, and here is our Leading Hope podcast.
Welcome to the Leading Hope Podcast with Kevin Jack. Your influence will lead people somewhere, lead them towards hope. Everyone has 20 minutes to learn to become a better leader. Make it count.
Welcome to Leading Hope with Kevin Jack. I'm your host, VJ Williams, here with my friend and pastor, Kevin Jack. Thank you for joining us and taking time out of your day to become a better leader. We release a new episode every Wednesday, so we'd love for you to share on social media and bring others along with us on this journey of becoming a better leader. Visit leadinghope.online to get updates and find out more about the Leading Hope community. If you're new to the podcast and haven't yet subscribed, we would love for you to do that now. Also, post about it, rate and review. You will not believe how that helps us get this podcast into the hands of so many more leaders just like you. And today we continue the series, Capacity. I'm excited for this. Episode 46, Raise Your Ceiling.
Raise your ceiling.
Raise your roof.
You didn't want to call it that. You were offended that I called it Raise Your Ceiling.
I wanted to Raise Your Roof because that's the song that's in my head now.
Fine. Raise your roof.
Raise your roof.
So, as we continue our understanding of expanding our capacity, we've used the metaphor up until now of your life is like a container with a bunch of blocks of different shapes and sizes instead of just doing block management. We're going to hang on to that phrase now since we stumbled into it last time. You have the opportunity to expand your container and how much actually fits into your life. And I want to switch metaphors for just this individual one to help us understand it. So today, we're going to talk about and discuss, hey, how do you actually expand that container? Because in the next episode, we're going to get into the rhythm that you adopt, but there's some key pieces that have to be in place. And so here's the metaphor that we're going to use. Imagine that you are a building architect attempting to increase the capacity of a house or a building or whatever it is. You're an architect. You wouldn't just walk in there and try to cram more stuff in. You'd increase the actual size of the house. Now, there's a number of things you may have to do. You may have to tear down a wall in order to expand a wall. You may have to, re-solidify the foundation. You may need to put more in there to make sure that the building isn't going to crumble. You'd have to check the foundation first off to see if it needs to be strengthened. You could expand it wider. You could, if the foundation is strong enough, expand it higher. There's work that you would do. If you're an architect, you wouldn't just lop the roof off and put another room on top. You'd have to make sure there's different things that would go into place. Tearing walls down, reapplying the foundation. There's a number of different things. And so here's the bigger idea that we want to get at, and I'm going to give you a couple categories in a second. My challenge to you is when it comes to increasing your capacity to think like an architect and not like a victim. And we got into victim mentality last episode of saying, if you're whining, you're not growing. If you're whining, you've abdicated your personal growth and you're not going to be creative and figure out the skills you need to learn. And so instead of thinking like a victim, think like an architect. And there's a couple different ways in which that we need to look at things that go into expanding our capacity. So I want to talk about physical. Today we're going to talk about mental, and we're also going to talk about spiritual. And these work together. And then I've got a couple questions that I'm going to give you right off the bat before we get to our discussion. So first off, physical capacity. Your physical capacity is your energy level, your health, your endurance. I hear people use the phrase protect the asset which is
Okay.
It just makes me laugh.
Yeah.
Whenever it's like, oh, you gotta protect the asset. Like, oh, you're the asset. And I get what they're talking about there. You're looking at me because we're just gonna keep moving within there.
I just was thinking of the Under Armour protect this house. Like,
Oh, there you go.
okay.
Instead of just protect, your goal is to optimize your physical ability. This is about your exercise. This is about your sleep. This is about your nutrition. Like, if you're always tired, there's a problem. Something is off. And so here's I have throughout my whole life, I've been good on exercise. Exercise was fine. And about 4 years ago, I just realized this. I realized this because I kept being exhausted at 2:00. It was only in about, I guess, 6 months ago that I started drinking coffee because I just wasn't used to having caffeine in my system. But about 6 months ago, I realized if I went to a restaurant at lunch and I loaded myself down with carbs, like if I had a big old burger or a big old bowl of pasta, I was ready to fall asleep.
Yep. Finished.
At 2:00. We went to BJ's 1 week, which is not a plug. They're not a sponsor, but they have a Pizookie, which is, if you're unfamiliar, a massive cookie loaded with ice cream. And that day was free Pizookie day. And so I'm like, heck yeah, free Pizookie day. I ate a whole one by myself. And I had so much I had to get done in the office that afternoon. I'm not kidding. By 1:30, I was like, I cannot stay awake. The sugar crash is killing me.
Oh, yeah.
And that was just it's such a simple thing. I didn't learn this until my 30s. I don't think I had to learn this in my 20s. In my 20s, I was fine. But in my 30s, I learned not just what I ate made a massive difference on my energy level in the day. And my work during the day is too important to crash every afternoon.
Right.
And just to acknowledge, you can't just push yourself for more. You can't just go, I've got to do more. I've got to operate. I've got to accomplish more. Hey, you need to up your sleep. You need to make sure you have an exercise regimen. You need to make sure that you're eating healthy and you're eating properly. And when these come in together, you will have the energy that you need to expand your physical capacity.
That's good.
Now, next piece. I want to skip over one. We'll get back to mental capacity in a second. Next piece, we're going to talk about your spiritual capacity. This is your purpose. Your spiritual capacity, we talk about it broadly with us internally, with our relationship with God as our faith. But if we could just use this as a more generic term in this moment for your purpose. This is the reason why you should care that your capacity is expanded to begin with. And so I look at it like this. You don't enter into this and just go, I want to expand my capacity to expand my capacity. There has to be a reason behind it. There has to be a motive behind it. Otherwise, you're going to get exhausted. This is, if I just give you, I want to, in my life, I want to lead my family well. I want them to know and love God and know and love each other. Yeah. And I want to make the greatest impact within the kingdom of God that I possibly can. I want to lead as many people and take them as far in faith as my time on earth will allow me. Yeah. That's why. That's awesome. That's my why.
That's fantastic.
I've talked other times of the experiences of inviting friends to church as a kid and them being bored as their mind. I want church to be attractive. I think it is. But I think sometimes we do a bunch of dumb stuff as it comes to church in terms of how we talk and the things that we offer, that we make it only for Christians. And I want church to be attractive to everyone.
That's good.
So here's the thing. As I look at, if I didn't have a clear purpose, I don't care if I'm falling asleep at 2:30.
Yeah.
If I don't have a clear purpose, I'm not waking up early in the morning to exercise. I'm not watching my sleep or watching what I eat. If I don't have a reason behind it, I don't care about increasing my energy.
That's right.
And so if you're at a spot, just say it like this. If you're at a job you don't care about and you're falling asleep at 2:30 every day, you need to reconnect with your purpose.
Yeah.
Because it is only by expanding your spiritual capacity that those other pieces are going to fall in line. And then the third one on this is your mental capacity. Your mental capacity is your edge Okay. Your mental capacity is your edge. This has, for me, been one of the most important pieces. So I have now I want to say my kid is 9, 10, like right in there, about to turn 10. I know what age they are. They're about to turn 10. And this started about 5 years. I have, for the last 15 years of my life, read a book every single week. Before that, I didn't read a thing. And some people are like, oh, I'm just not a reader. No, I learned to become a reader. I developed an appetite for reading because I wanted to make an impact with my life. As I was connected to the purpose, I knew one of the primary pathways to that was my knowledge. And that gives me an edge. By reading a book a week, I'm thinking sharp. I'm thinking opportunity and not victim. Just by constantly going through different ideas, it keeps my edge. And it's been said that every self-help book is pretty much the same. Every self-help book is, if you've read them once, you've read them all. They go, well, I've read a lot of them.
Yeah.
Like I have, and they're right. But this is what I find is that, and I'm not saying that's the only thing I read by any means, but when I read them, it gives me an edge. When I read them, it makes me far more proactive in my thinking. And so when these three come together and you go, hey, I've got like my house, like my life is like a house, and I want to expand my capacity. Don't just build a room on with no plan.
Yeah. Don't
just add a whole extra story to your house without any design work there. Yeah. There's pieces to expanding your capacity. This is something that we've hit on this podcast over and over again. Think like an architect. Yeah. Design your life. Don't be a victim. So I've got 3 questions for you, and then we're going to jump into whatever you want to, Veej.
Oh, I can't wait.
First question. What do I care about that I'm not currently able to do? What do I care about that I'm not currently able to do? This is the question of purpose, the question of expanding your spiritual capacity. This gives you reason to do all the other things. What do I care about? What matters that is currently beyond my capacity? Once you know this, you'll be able to live into the others. Second question, what do I need to be able to do that I'm not currently able to do? What do I need to be able to do that I'm not currently able to do? This is the question of your physical capacity, the question of your energy level. Man, I need to be able to do this, but 5 o'clock hits and I'm done. Quit being done every day at 5 o'clock. I found this Sundays I'm exhausted. Like Sundays after service, I'm whooped. And I realized that I'm going to do one of 2 things.
Yep.
I'm not going to have leisure time. I'm not going to watch a movie. I'm not going to hang out and play with my kids. One of 2 things are going to happen. I'm either going to go work out or I'm going to fall asleep.
Yep.
Because if I stay home, I'm falling asleep.
Like every Sunday.
Every single Sunday. So I just go, hey, I'm going to do one or the other. I'll go work out.
Yeah.
And as I've done that over time, I'm not as exhausted on Sunday.
Yeah.
Like I actually have energy to do other things that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So what do you need to be able to do in alignment with your spiritual purpose that you're currently not able to do? And then the third question is, what do I need to know about what to do or how to do it that I don't currently know? I know that question sounds confusing. What do I need to know about either what or how that I don't currently know? This is the question of your mental capacity and your edge. And so it's to understand, you don't just enter into this like a bull and go, I'm going to expand my capacity and wake up at 4 o'clock every day and work really hard and go.
Yeah.
No. Design it.
Yeah.
Be an architect. Look at your physical, your mental, and your spiritual capacity. And as those expand, your capacity will expand as well.
I love that last question, because if you knew, you'd already be doing it.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Absolutely.
That's a great thing. It's just awesome. And then the other question that I want to start, well, it's not maybe a question. You looked at me on Sundays when you're talking about sleeping. So, and I would easily at this point in time look back at you and say, you shut your trap. But I will receive your word because you're exactly right. I think that's the beauty of this podcast is that, no, I'm serious.
This is my way of addressing to you. Like, I'll text VJ at like 4:30. I'll say like, you want to go see a movie? Won't get a response until like 8 o'clock that night.
Yeah, and it's because I'm exhausted, and I have not on Sundays intentionally put anything in place after church unless someone has put it in place for me. We have something this Sunday that we're doing, so I obviously am not going to be sleeping. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's what this podcast does. It reminds us of the things that we have to do in order to get better. Yeah. And I love that part of it. One of the things that you said, I really love this particular.
Hey, let me give one note before we jump into this. This is not to say don't ever take a nap. I don't want anyone to ever hear that.
Of course
It's
not.
just saying be strategic about what you're doing.
Right.
Like, you're strategic about so much of your life. You're strategic about so many things that you do within your life, but so often we're not strategic about our very lives themselves.
Yeah.
It's to go, hey, if you were looking at how you lived and what you wanted to do, what would you do differently in order to do that?
Yeah.
And it may be take a nap.
Yeah. Strategy and success are pretty closely
absolutely
linked. You know what I mean? So that's a good note. But I love this talk that you gave today about raising the roof, your personal roof, and it's so good because we think it's just more effort, and we just got to do more, and there is some of that in some of the cases, but that's not what this series is about. And if we want to broaden, if we want to develop, if we want to enlarge, if we want to grow, if we want to increase, if we want to open up possibilities, if we want to widen our capacity, it's not just raising the roof, it's finding the foundation and being intentional to get that ready.
That's good.
When you talked about physical and mental, and most important to me, spiritual capacities, if you want to increase everything in your life to where you're doing it in the way in which you believe you were designed to do it, start there, man. That was powerful, powerful stuff. Man, I don't even have a question other than to say that's just something that I need to reevaluate.
So let me give a piece on how functionally this lives out. Let me talk about a little bit about the physical and the spiritual and how they're connected. So I get up every day, 5:30. It's just what I do. I get up. Book that I read recently talked about the importance of moving in the morning. So I'll run a mile almost every morning. And it's just what I didn't start waking up at 5:30.
Right.
Okay. Like that wasn't day one. Years ago, my early was 7. And I know some of you look at that, you're like, 7?
Yeah.
My goodness, I've built a house before 7. 7 felt early to me at the time. Like I couldn't. 5:30 would have been impossible for me. But over the years, I've been able to keep scaling that. And I don't know if I'll ever get earlier than 5:30. I don't know. Like, I know there's senior citizens and you're like 4 a.m. people. I don't really want to be that person, I don't think. But I find that I can get so much done in the morning that is effective. Now, there are sometimes I'll go through seasons.
Yeah.
And 5:30 feels awful.
Yeah.
Like, I'm in a season right now, 5:30 feels awesome. I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
I'm pumped. But like, it's going to get winter and it's going to be dark longer, and 5:30 is going to feel hard. And what I do then is I focus on reconnecting myself to my purpose.
Yes.
Because I remind myself, this is why 5:30 matters. It's not just 5:30 for 5:30, and you can insert your own time. It's not just exercise for exercise or eating healthy or reading to do it. Yeah. No, there's a motive behind it. And when I'm tired of expanding my physical and my mental capacity, I know it's just my response. I know I have to reconnect myself to my purpose and expand my spiritual capacity, and then those others don't feel as hard.
That's an excellent point. You were talking about we need to think like an architect and not a victim, which I think is so important. One of the things I wanted to, so when we feel our capacity being stretched, like that feeling
the pain.
of being the pain, and we feel that we want to be a victim of the circumstance, right? Because that's where our human mind goes.
Yep.
What is something that we need to intentionally put in place when that first onset of that pain and maybe victim status starts to overtake our bodies? We've all done it. You even put it in your notes, I think. which is often where we find ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. So we all know that it's starting to happen or is going to happen. What do we do right before it takes over?
This is probably the overarching theme of this entire podcast and everything we've done. It is just to go, man, like, how would, if you were outside yourself looking at your life, what would you do?
Oh, man.
We give great counsel to others at times, and we can see the potential and opportunity in others, but we become victims of our own circumstances.
Oh, man, that's good.
And so it's just a matter of, it is rewiring your brain in such a way to think, challenge, this is an opportunity. How would I best go about this, instead of poor me, instead of why would they do this to me, instead of no one cares about me. And the more you can flip that switch the other direction and go, this is a challenge.
Yeah.
I referenced this in the last one when I had to come up with 3 and like write and deliver 3 messages a week. And I go, when that first happened, it felt unfair.
Yeah.
It was like, this isn't fair. And they didn't pay me anymore. Yeah. But here's the thing, is even though I got no cash considerations, if we talk about those, for the extra work I was doing, that prepped me for what I'm doing now in a way that it never could. And so some people look at it and they go like, well, you give during COVID.
Yeah.
I gave a message every week. We did a Thursday night Bible study online, and we were recording this podcast.
Yeah.
People were like, oh, it's too much. And you go, oh, I've already done this before.
Yes.
I know what this feels like. Content isn't hard for me now.
Right.
Because I went through that pain.
Yeah.
And so the more you can think of it and just go, no, there's difficulties in my past that got me to where I am now. So why would I look at this present difficulty as hardship? Yeah. It's opportunity.
I love that. I love that we look for the opportunity in the circumstance.
Always.
That's fantastic. What else do you want someone to know? We're out of time today.
Out of time.
Raise Your Roof, episode 46.
My greatest desire is that in the moment that you're experiencing that pain, which is the pathway to increasing your capacity, that you would think like an architect. And you go through what needs developed, what needs changed. Is it my energy? Is it my edge? Is it my purpose? Look at it like an outsider, and that's how you'll expand your capacity.
That's awesome, man. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you're new to the podcast or haven't subscribed, we'll go ahead and do that now for us, man. It's incredible to watch everyone's stories from subscribing and let us know how it's working in your businesses and in your life. Also, post and rate about it. Review on all the different platforms. I don't know if you know this, but we're on many, many different platforms. So if you haven't reviewed on all those, go ahead and do that for us. And that just helps us get this into the hands of so many more leaders like you. And it really does make a difference. And we're growing, you're growing, we're all growing together. It's exactly why this podcast exists. And so if you haven't visited leadinghope.online, do that now and send us your stories, or just give us some comments and feedback. We'd love to hear from you. And remember, everyone has 20 minutes to learn to become a better leader. Make it count.